Hello and welcome back to another video. In today's video, I want to talk about the topic of languages and basically not just, I guess, the formation of it, but just some interesting insights that I saw or that I thought about for a while because I've been thinking about these things for a while recently. And in particular, the concept of cases. And the strange, interesting fact that English doesn't have as many. Well, I shouldn't say English doesn't have cases because we do have two to three cases, and I'll share one in a moment here. Um, but if you look at other languages, such as Arabic, Russian, Greek, Latin, these languages have cases. However, English doesn't really have many cases. And naturally I wanted to ask, I started asking myself why, like, why doesn't English have any cases? um and I hope that in this video we can have a discussion about it and kind of get to the bottom of it, or at least some form of a conclusion. And I hope that this video can open other people's minds about this topic and hopefully share some insights with me as well. So basically the idea of a case is like it's a different version of a same word. I think it's just easier if I give an example of it. So, for example, if I say the sentence in English, "Can you help me with my homework? I need help." Um, and so, for this example, it's the case. There's the words in particular are me, my, and I. This is all to denote the same subject, but it's just a different verb, or excuse me, not a different verb, a different word. So you wouldn't say, for example, "Can you help my with me homework? Me need help." You wouldn't say that. You would say, "Can you help me with my homework? I need help." And we never stop to think about it, um, because we take it naturally. Because if we're a native speaker, we don't stop to think about it. It's very intuitive to us. This just sounds right because we've heard it so many times. But me, my, and I are different versions, are different words of the same noun, me, pretty much the subject. And this is the common thing throughout other languages because it's not just in personal pronouns that other languages have it in, but it's in normal nouns as well. So, for example, if I bring up the, let's say, um, I'll just choose Russian. If I bring up Russian and I say, "Это красивая девушка," this beautiful girl, the noun and the adjective have to agree in gender, number, and case. So basically, there's going to be, this is why in other languages there's so many forms of the same word. Now, in particular with Russian, there's different forms for nouns and then different forms for adjectives because they have to agree, not just in number and gender like in Spanish, but in cases as well. So, for example, if you have a different, if you, let's say, for example, because devuchka, girl, is a feminine noun, you would say krasivaya because it's also a singular noun and it's also let's see, singular, feminine, and if it's in the nominative case. So that's why you should say krasivaya. But if you have a masculine noun, you would change krasivaya. It could be krasivoye, or if it's plural, krasivuye. And so again, it has to change in gender, number, and case. And why I think this is in particular for certain languages, when I think about it, I know that English and other Western languages uh, are very individualistic. And so the fact that they would keep cases only for the personal pronouns, like we, our, us, I, my, mine, the fact that they would only keep cases for the personal pronouns showcases this value of emphasizing the individual, as opposed to other languages which value um, nouns, or like other nouns, other things, other people. Because even think about the word for computer. We don't even have the we don't even distinguish it based on gender, or like neuter, feminine, or yeah, neuter, feminine, or masculine. We don't distinguish it from any of those. We just say computer, you know? So, for example, even in Spanish, for example, if I say like my beautiful like sister, I could say mi bonita, or well, I guess the adjective would come later. It would be mi hermana bonita. Or if I say for my brother, I would say mi hermano bonito. So we can distinguish it based on the gender and the number, whether it's singular or plural. But in but in English, we would say my beautiful brother, my beautiful sister. It would just beautiful would be the same. It wouldn't be bonito, bonita. It wouldn't be bonitas, bonitos. It would just say my beautiful brothers, my beautiful sisters. So beautiful would stay the same. It would be one word. It wouldn't change. And I find that concept absolutely fascinating. And another concept that I find really fascinating is, piggybacking off of the fact that Western languages really emphasize the individual, in particular English and Germanic languages. Um, for example, in Spanish, we would say me gusta to say I like. Now, it's really interesting because in Russian as well, you would say мне нравится. And there's a certain meaning that's lost in translation. So in English, because I'm talking to native English speakers, we would say I like. And this would mean like I have a feeling for this thing. But in Spanish and in Russian, it would be me gusta and мне нравится, respectively. And it would be translated to I like, but there's a particular meaning saying that it means more so it is liked by me, or the other thing is being liked by me. So the emphasis isn't necessarily on the individual, but it is on the other thing that is being liked by me. If that makes sense. I know it's pretty complex or complicated to really communicate this idea of, like respecting like the other noun in the sentence, but that's one of the main values that I would say in Spanish, and that I would say as I'm studying the Russian language. Also, I just want to mention this, that in Old English, English actually used to have more cases. Um, and even if you look back in Latin, Latin used to have more cases. And again, like this, I tie back to my theory that um, cases are used to denote importance of a certain thing. So if we use a case, it's because we find it important. Um, and because some languages use cases for the nouns, they would find those each different version of the nouns. Each different version of the nouns important. Um, so if you look back on Latin and English, it used to have more cases, but over time, and when I say English and Latin used to have cases, for English, I would say uh, around the Norman invasion, and Latin, obviously, that would be back in the Roman Empire, when people still spoke Latin and wrote in Latin. Um, but again, I want to focus on English here. So basically, English used to have more cases, but over time, we got rid of the cases. Now, I could say this is to emphasize the value of the individual. But there's another concept as well. And this kind of ties into what I want to talk about, in the sense that and I don't mean to be rude here, but it's more so it could be seen as a dumbing down of the language in order to reflect the new generations of speakers, their values. The values of the new generations of speakers. Because people, in my opinion, when you look back on history, they used to be older, and they used to be, well, obviously older, but wiser, and just generally, yeah, I can say wiser. I don't want to say smarter, because there's a difference between being wise and being smart. I'll say wiser. Um, And so over time, you see this. Again, I don't mean to be rude, but a dumbing down of the language. And even you can see this in modern culture. I've noticed some people, instead of saying I don't, they say I own, like ION, to like combine the two words. Or even like Riz as a substitute for charisma. And in my opinion, this could be the shortening of the word can reflect the shortening of the time span, or excuse me, the attention span of the speakers. Sort of like what TikTok is doing on a technological front. But I want to discuss technology in another video. But just saying the language is reflecting this shortening of the attention span, similar to what TikTok is doing. And you can see these values being reflected in the changing of the language, and also as well as the lessening of cases, lessening of the amount of cases that we have in the English language to the point where we only have about two or three. And one last point I want to talk about is I've been really wanting to study the Byzantine Empire and just seeing how their society functioned as a way, as kind of like a representation of like early Christian ideas. And one of the things that I was pointed out to is this change in the uses of language, particularly in Greek. So basically, English adopted a lot of words from Latin, but also a lot of Greek vocabulary as well. So, for example, when I was watching another video, I forgot which one it was, but they said that the word for crisis, instead of being like this chaotic like mess or chaotic event that happens, it actually meant a moment, a pivotal moment of decision, where someone had to make a decision. This is a really interesting topic. A certain meaning is being lost in translation. And the second one, the second example, I would even say is more kind of um, impressive. That I would say, like it's a more impressive example in the sense that if we take the word Armageddon, in the original Greek, well, I'll start off with English. In the original, well, in English, in modern day English, we say Armageddon and we use it to denote like the end of the world. But in original Greek, they actually kept a more faith-based meaning, and so it didn't just mean the end of the world, but it also meant the second coming of Christ. And this is how, and this is one of the ways, this is one of the reasons why I'm so fascinated with, I would say, the study of the Byzantine Empire, because I want to understand the original Greek and the original Greek meanings of words, because it's clear to me that in our modern day society, a lot of those religious contexts of the words were lost. Um, and I want to go back to the study of the original Greek, in which they did retain a certain faith based meaning. And another topic from my studies of the, or from my future studies of the Byzantine Empire, is I want to talk about the law, because this is a really, again, like I'm thinking about a lot of things, but this is another really fascinating topic to talk about as well, because I just learned about the concept of law, and I should have known this. I mean, it's so apparent to me right now, but um, the concept of laws weren't just invented out of nowhere. Again, like the faith-based laws were meant as a religious sort of law for individuals not to just cross their own neighbor, not to just cross their own brother, but not to cross the divine, not to cross the divine, or not to cross any god. So, yeah, the origination of laws in particular started with faith-based laws, but then over time, as we became more secular, then it just became more man-made laws. So now, we take the divine out of it, and we just see it as crossing your neighbor without any like importance, without any heed to the divine.